Hi, I'm Eric, the co-founder and CEO of TwinThread. I meet with engineers and plant leaders every day who recognize the power and potential of applying industrial AI, but they struggle to figure out exactly where and how to start. My advice is always to start with building a business case, and today I'd like to share some ideas with you on how you can approach that in a pretty simple and direct way. The process starts by selecting a plant or a production line to focus on. Not just any line, one that you know has room for improvement. We like to start with a simple questionnaire like the one you see here. We really want to understand the big picture performance around production, material losses, quality, downtime, and yield. This will help narrow in on the metrics that need the most improvement and the potential use cases to focus on for a pilot. It's also useful information for benchmarking your performance against others in your industry. Once you have the right metrics in focus, next you'll want to brainstorm on potential use cases. Really specific process or asset optimization opportunities you want to focus on. Not every use case is ideal for applying industrial AI. So what constitutes ideal? First, you have to have data available. Our recommendation is from 3 months up to 1 year. And if you don't have that, well, it's time to start collecting that data and time to start archiving it so you do have enough data to apply it industrial AI use case in the future. Choose a metric that has a well-defined outcome, something like reduce unplanned downtime by 15%. Ideally, the metric we're trying to improve has some variation in it. It goes up and down month to month, day to day, and that variation gives us opportunity to optimize. And the last thing to consider is consider something that has significant economic benefit. And having that significant economic benefit has the best chance of covering all the costs. And sometimes the change management costs can be substantial. So we're looking for big projects here. Lastly, we're looking for projects that can go beyond the pilot. They have broad applicability across the plant, across your enterprise. And that's what really makes up ideal use cases. With ideal use cases identified, the next step is to match those cases with specific solutions. It's very important for a pilot to demonstrate rapid deployment and quick time to value. If you can match your cases with one of the pre-built solutions we offer, it means your pilot doesn't have to take on the cost or the time it takes to build a custom AI solution from the ground up. Oftentimes, multiple solutions come into play in order to fully address the opportunities and use cases you identify. Quality and throughput, for example, often go hand in hand. With use cases identified, the next step is to start building the financial model. This is a simple model, yet captures the most critical elements for success. First, an initiative is likely supported by multiple use cases and involves optimizing multiple metrics, and we want this financial model to reflect the complete picture. As far as costs are concerned, there are multiple elements. First, the subscription is an annual cost, whereas some of the other categories are one-time, non-recurring costs. You may need some help in implementation, so that's reflected in a professional service cost, and you'll likely need internal resources for your project. So it's important to account for those costs too. Remember to include that change management costs. We're talking about internal documentation, training, validation costs that could be significant, and they should be included in your business model. Lastly, if there are any automation upgrades, things like additional sensors and such, be sure to include that here too. It's much easier to justify those type of investments when it's wrapped in a project that drives direct improvements, as this type of project does. Next, consider all the possible use cases supporting the initiative. It's important to have multiple cases because some cases may prove to be not feasible for a variety of reasons, but most common being the data to support that case wasn't quite as good or quite as complete as you thought it was. That's okay. That's why we recommend this approach of multiple cases. Next, consider the baseline performance from the questionnaire and what is a reasonable target for improvement. Establishing the value of each unit improvement is key. I have an example of how to approach that in a simple yet effective way. Here's a simple model for estimating value. We want to establish a high-level breakdown of big cost buckets and express them as a percent of revenue, percent of sales in scope for the pilot plant or line. The reason why we want this breakdown is that different benefit pathways have a different basis. For example, some benefits come from fixed cost amortization, or labor costs or material costs, and we want to reflect those accurately in this model. Single use cases typically have multiple benefit pathways. Improving stability for one part of the process often has benefits downstream, for example. Here we have benefits in making, the main focus of this pilot, but have downstream benefits in packaging. Each benefit pathway has a metric associated with it, a baseline, and a target for improvement. The value needs to take into account which cost components are in the benefit pathway. For example, downtime improvements impact labor and fixed costs if the operation isn't capacity constrained. But if it is capacity constrained, then downtime results in a loss of net sales margin for the amount of product that wasn't produced while down. Bringing this all back into business case, we can calculate the year 1 and year 2 returns. Year 2 returns are always better because we don't have to include the one-time non-recurring investments required to get the pilot initially implemented. Note that returns reflect different scenarios of use cases that prove to be feasible. This is one way to assess your risk up front. If certain cases don't prove to be feasible, you can see the impact, or you can see the high and low of what your returns might be. The returns on industrial AI projects can be very high. At some level, ROI needs to be high in order to compensate for the perceived risk in doing an AI project. From our perspective, if you follow the right process and focus on deploying pre-built solutions, then the risk is actually low. The risk is high if you build custom solutions from the ground up, where you can't even establish feasibility until after you invest and complete the upfront development. This is why we created TwinThread, to offer the benefits of AI without all the risks. We'd be happy to engage with you and share all the tools and materials you've seen here today. If you would like some help developing use cases and evaluating potential returns, our sales team stands ready to help. You can schedule a meeting with our team by going to twinthread.com/meet/sales. When you go to that link, we'll ask you for your email address and then present a list of available times to meet. If you're already working with us, it will connect you with your existing account manager. Otherwise, we'll make sure to connect you with the right resources to help you build your case. I hope you found this material useful. Thank you for taking the time today. Feel free to email me directly at the address on the screen. I'd appreciate any questions or any feedback you have for me. Thank you and have a great day.